time to talk about last week in the WWE. Another week on the road to the Royal Rumble, which is also on the road to WrestleMania. I still think the road to the Royal Rumble has been mediocre at best. I don't know if it's all of the backstage turmoil that it makes it hard to care about what's happening on screen as much as I did in December and even November. And Royal Rumble is my favorite WWE pay-per-view, but I have to say I enjoyed the Road to Survivor Series more than I'm enjoying the Road to the Royal Rumble. But one thing I am enjoying, and something I wanted to talk about a lot here, is how much Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, those two old friends in real life that broke into the business together, really are carrying the WWE in 2023 so far. Now, of course, the Bloodline story as a whole is still the best story in wrestling. Still a story with some legs after years. It's had its downs, though. But like I've talked about before, Sami Zayn being injected into the story really gave the whole story a new life. But now with Kevin Owens back in the story too, and because of those real life dynamics with Sami Zayn and a plethora of history both outside of the WWE with Sami Zayn, back in NXT, and then the WWE together, there was a time when Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn feuded in NXT, and that was great. And then they feuded in the WWE off and on for years, and honestly, I gotta be honest, that eventually got very old to me. I could remember, can't say what year, I don't know, sometime between 2017 and 2019. I'm assuming it was like 2017-ish, when Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn had so many matches against each other by that point, that I was 100% sick of Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn matches. It didn't help that back then the creative was so bad in the WWE. Sami Zayn had no real character back then, and Kevin Owens was kind of a one-note character too back then. He was, of the prize fighter, but they didn't book him that way at all. So that feud eventually got buried still. But now in 2023, with the whole Bloodline story and that history between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and they had a pretty great match this past week on SmackDown where Sami Zayn continues to want to prove himself to Roman Reigns and the Bloodline by beating Kevin Owens. And he's about to beat Kevin Owens when the Usos and Solo Sikoa interfere, costing him the match. They want to just beat on Kevin Owens. They put him through a table. Kevin Owens does good work after that beatdown when he's put through the table, where he has his hand basically on Sami Zayn's foot and ankle. It's good stuff, hopefully leading to those two coming back together at some point. We've talked about it before on this channel, how it seemed like it was building up for a long time that the Bloodline's going to turn on Sami Zayn, but now, of course, a lot of speculation that perhaps it would be better if Sami Zayn turns on the Bloodline, gets him a nice babyface turn, maybe tries and gets back in Kevin Owens' good graces. There's still so many ways that they can go with this story, and that's what has made it so good. Is because it's so layered and there's so many directions you can go. They've built up Sami Zayn. He's gone over with this story. If he were to somehow go against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, it would be a great story. Roman Reigns has been worried in recent weeks about how Sami Zayn might be trying to take the spotlight from him. Maybe he's enjoying that a little too much. That would fit the story. But then, of course, all this speculation that The Rock could be returning. They're supposed to have a Bloodline little family reunion thing here going on Raw's 30th anniversary, which should be a fun show. Could The Rock appear? Who knows? I feel like there's some part of weird WWE fans online that don't want to see The Rock versus Roman Reigns. I don't understand that at all. That would be 100% what's best for business. It's The Rock. But I think maybe they see that as it would kind of water down the story if The Rock is the one who ends up beating Roman Reigns after all of this build-up, after all of this time that he's held the title. I can see how there can be complaints with that, but I still think the story would fit because of the whole bloodline story. And who's to say that The Rock would beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania? It could cement Roman Reigns as a great heel, to say the least, if he defeats The Rock at WrestleMania. And then, of course, there is Cody Rhodes, who set his own story when he returned to the WWE last year, how he wants to do what his father Dusty Rhodes could not do, and that is win the WWE World title. He's going to be returning at the Royal Rumble. That's been announced ahead of time. Some people are upset because it takes the surprise element out of it, but the WWE kind of giving a good point. I think it was Nick Khan in an interview that said that it wasn't a surprise anyway that Cody Rhodes is going to be at the Royal Rumble. And that's true. So a lot of different things that they could be doing with the Roman Reigns story here, and I'm down to see which way they do it. Will Roman Reigns have 2 different fights at WrestleMania to defend both of his titles? That's another speculation. I don't know how I feel about that. If he loses night 1 and then wins night 2 or something, or wins night 1 and loses night 2, I think that would be the better chain of events, I guess, if that's going to be the case, if he's going to have to defend both titles. Of course, the Usos also have both tag team titles. They're going to be defending the Raw tag team titles against Judgment Day. It would be nice if they took the titles off of the Usos. I said this back on my old channel when I used to talk about wrestling a little on there, that as soon as they gave all of these titles to the Bloodline, it really hindered the rest of the roster, and it did that. Like, the Bloodline story has been spectacular, but the rest of the stories and the rest of the roster has struggled, and with no titles for the rest of the roster to really go after, it certainly hindered them. I always thought they should have just stripped either the Usos or Roman Reigns or both out of one of the titles at some point, because they're not defending it all the time. It would have made sense storyline-wise, and you don't have to beat one of them to do that. But yeah, the WWE wrote themselves in a corner when both Roman Reigns and the Usos won both titles. But we'll see what happens. They need to drop at least one of the titles soon, and Roman Reigns needs to drop at least one of the titles soon. 2, to open things back up for the rest of the roster. So we'll see if anything really happens with that. Outside of that, I feel like we got more build to Raw's 30th anniversary than the actual Royal Rumble. We've gotten some people announced for both the men's and women's Royal Rumbles. Hopefully it's not like last year. Hopefully there actually is some surprises in the Royal Rumbles this year, because last year's Royal Rumble pay-per-view was one of the worst ever, honestly. Bray Wyatt and LA Knight will be going against each other at the Royal Rumble. We had a real nothing burger of a promo by Bray Wyatt on SmackDown last week. He said in that promo how he is Uncle Howdy, he is the Fiend, he is all these things. Still don't know where they're going with that. I don't really know if the payoff to this Uncle Howdy story is going to be anything good. I'm just going to be honest. I want it to be good. I liked it at first, but it's been spinning its wheels a lot. Like, the huge reveal if Uncle Howdy is Bo Dallas, I mean, it's an insider thing because Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt are real-life brothers, but there's no actually real history in the WWE for this story. But it could still work. I just don't know if it's a huge payoff. I did like that they added Uncle Howdy to the whole Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss feud, because that needed a little bit more excitement. They had a nice brawl on Raw that I enjoyed. But the build to that match, or rematch, I guess, hasn't been that good. But I think injecting Uncle Howdy into it at least gives you the thought that Alexa Bliss might be able to beat Bianca Belair at the Royal Rumble. I don't know if that's the best decision, though. I think Bianca Belair's held the title for this long, and I would assume they're still trying to set up a Bianca versus Rhea Ripley match at WrestleMania. It seems like the most obvious scenario. They built up Rhea Ripley up huge. She gets in Solo Sikoa's face on Raw. They've really been building her up as this badass woman heel who gets involved with the men sometimes. So it would be a pretty obvious feud between Rhea and Bianca. But it's going to need better writing than the women's division in the WWE has been getting. Because let's talk for a moment about the Becky Lynch and Bayley feud. It's not working. It is falling flat, to say the least. And I think a lot of that has to do with the booking for Bayley up to this point. Since she returned, she's done a lot of losing. She has no real heat or momentum as a character. And as popular as Becky Lynch can be, she's not being able to carry this feud by herself. So their promo on Raw, very awkward. And the feud in general, very awkward. Before I wrap this up and talk a little bit about NXT, let's see if I have anything else I really wanted to go over on SmackDown or Raw over the past week. You know, Raquel Rodriguez, they keep pushing. She beat Liv Morgan, which I think is a disservice to Liv Morgan. I think they could still be doing a whole lot more with Liv Morgan than what they've done since she lost the title. I'm going to be honest. Triple H has not done a good job booking the women's division since he returned. That has definitely been his weakness. It's giving very much Tony Khan energy, to be honest. And Raquel Rodriguez should not be a babyface. I think she would work way better as a heel. So maybe turn her heel if she's going to feud with Charlotte Flair or something, who's a babyface as well and not working. She's not going to work as a babyface either. SmackDown, the division in general, and this happened before Triple H took over creative. This was Vince McMahon's fault. SmackDown's women division, it's really hard to watch. It is pretty bad. That Bronson Reed versus Tozawa, which was kind of a glorified squash on Raw, but that was very entertaining. I thought it made Bronson Reed look like $1,000,000. His splash off the top rope, the tsunami, good shit. I hope they push Bronson Reed to the moon, because I think he can be really good. He might need a mouthpiece in someone. I don't know who, but he's working for me. The main event was fun too, the 6-man tag. They also continued to tease MVP trying to help Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander against the Street Profits. MVP then also brought down Omos to the main event, where Omos was kind of helping Lashley. So MVP maybe trying to put some sort of Hurt Business back together. I think that would be a good storyline for Raw as well. Triple H continues to try and correct some wrongs during Vince McMahon's terrible creative decision making. But I don't know if Triple H is ever going to get the chance to right those wrongs, because Vince McMahon, you gotta be honest with ourselves at this point. Vince McMahon is back, and he's trying to do all he can to push Triple H in the direction he wants to go. Triple H could have all these meetings with the talent that he wants, that he's in charge of creative. Trust me, Vince McMahon is going to get as much of it. He's going to get a lot of way. Vince McMahon is back to book WrestleMania. That's his baby. It's his creation. Vince McMahon is going to have a lot of more input than Triple H is going to try and make it seem, for better or for worse. Quickly on NXT, I thought it was another pretty bad episode of NXT. It's been struggling over the past several weeks. I don't really like any of the directions they've been going, to be honest. The one thing I liked was that instead of Tony D'Angelo turning on Stacks, Tony D'Angelo is going to bring Stacks more into the family. I still think maybe they're going for a face turn with Tony D'Angelo. We'll see. I did also like the kind of upset that Sol Ruca beat Alba Fire. If anybody's heard any of my videos as of late, I like when we get some things that I don't expect. Some unexpected results are good in pro wrestling. The main thing on NXT though was Toxic Attraction. They won the Battle Royal to be #1 contenders against Roxanne Perez. They didn't turn on each other in the Battle Royal, but man, are they awkward on the mic. And man, is the build to NXT Vengeance Day for the women's title very awkward. So a lot of awkwardness going on NXT. I hope they can pull it together, because it's been tough to watch Freddie Prinze Jr., I talked some shit about him, but he was right when it came to NXT. I thought the fall for NXT was kind of getting it together again. I thought NXT was becoming a lot more watchable. But since like mid-December, for the past month, it's not very watchable at all. One last thing about the WWE, because I call out AEW, and they've been doing a really bad job at selling tickets. They've been struggling to sell tickets, but the crowds that they do get, very hot. Whew, these crowds on Raw and SmackDown, they might sell tickets, but it's like crickets in there sometimes. There's some cold crowds for Raw and SmackDown. Does that mean that nobody's truly getting over in the WWE except for Sami Zayn, the Bloodline, and Kevin Owens? It might mean that, because, I mean, I guess Bray Wyatt too, and LA Knight's good on the mic, so he's good at getting reactions from the crowd. But other than those examples, the crowd is way too quiet at some of these WWE events for my liking.